So we're here for Osiris Media with Sierra Hall at Delfest, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, this is, how many times have you been at Delfest? 6 or?
I think close to 6 at this point, yeah. 5 or 6.
That's awesome. This is a wonderful place.
Oh, I love it so much. It's one of the greatest festivals.
Tell me some of the things you love about Delfest, if you could.
Well, I mean, I think this is a beautiful location to have a festival, so if you're going to, go kind of camp out somewhere for a week or so and just listen to great music, this is a good place to do it. I've been a Del McCoury band fan since I was a little kid, getting into bluegrass, and just kind of loved all their recordings, and to get to be at a festival that they host like this is just it's such a blast, because not only are they heroes, but they're some of the most genuine folks. I mean, the entire family just welcomes you in, and at this point everybody here feels like family to me, so it's really got that atmosphere, and I think that really sets this festival apart from perhaps some other ones.
It is uniquely family friendly and just kind of family environment here.
It is, yeah.
And you mentioned come here for a week. You actually taught at the Academy this year.
Yeah, so I got here on last Sunday and taught Monday through Wednesday, and just had a great time. It's like my 4th time, I think, getting to be part of the Academy.
Wow.
And you can tell that for a lot of the students, they come back year after year. It's something that a lot of people seem to plan their entire year around.
Nice.
This is like their vacation. And so it's really, incredible, all the relationships that folks have with one another just because they met here, and they kind of bond over getting to share this week together, and that's always really cool.
Do you teach people how to play music otherwise, or is this like sort of a unique experience?
There's a few other festivals, like I've taught Rocky Grass Academy, or there's a festival called Grand Targhee. I've taught at that festival. So I do teaching some, usually when it kind of coincides with a festival, but not too much. But when I can, I always really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun to sort of see somebody light up when they're just in the stages of learning to play an instrument, because I remember what that's like, so it's particularly exciting to see that in somebody.
You started playing quite young?
I was 8.
8?
Yeah.
Okay. And then playing bluegrass the whole time, and then you went to Berkeley, did you not?
I did, yeah. So I started out just, going to festivals. I grew up in a little town in Tennessee called Byrdstown, and it's a very rural part of Tennessee, but there's a lot of great music around there, bluegrass and country, folk, gospel. So, heard music in church and jams and things like that, but pretty much just started getting invited to travel and go to festivals here and there, and started meeting more and more folks, and, bluegrass was really my focus for probably the first, 10 to 12 years of playing music, and then went to Berkeley and kind of got to explore some other things, musically, some other genres, and have always loved a lot of different things, but, in recent years I've kind of been diving into some other things as well.
I noticed your set definitely does not hang directly into bluegrass, so you kind of steer out towards jazz or other things. And
yeah, it's interesting, because I don't really fancy myself a jazz musician. I wish I could call myself a jazz musician, but that wouldn't be quite right. I'm really at the end of the day, kind of a bluegrass girl at heart that just loves a lot of different things, and I've really tried to surround myself the last few years with musicians that are inspiring to be around and play with, regardless of what instrument they play or what their musical background is. And I have so many friends and peers that are amazing musicians that maybe didn't grow up playing bluegrass. Like I met Eddie Barbash, who's a saxophone player. I never thought I would be like on stage with a saxophone playing my own music, but I heard him play and thought, man, this guy gets it. He really has gotten into bluegrass and old time music, and has learned to play fiddle tunes on the saxophone. I'd never quite heard anything like that before, and so I thought, I want to play music with that guy. And so it's funny how much it seems to work, and I think it mostly works because it's him. And same thing, the guy that was playing electric guitar, Mike Bono. I met Mike at Berkeley. And this was our first time actually playing music together.
Wow.
He was filling in for this other guy, Mike Seal, who's been playing electric guitar with me a lot over the past couple of years. And, he couldn't make this show, so I thought, yeah, finally, all these years later, time to hire Mike Bono for something. So.
And you grew up playing bluegrass, and then what was it like going to Berkeley? Was it was it like a completely different eye-opening experience in terms of the types of musicians you met, or was it similar in some ways to what you'd been doing before you went?
No, it was a lot different, I would say, only because, I grew up playing just by ear, listening to recordings, going to jam sessions, like many of the bluegrass heroes I have, same way, that just you learn to play through, sitting in a circle and somebody saying, hey, here's a cool tune, let me show you how it goes, or hearing these, kind of traditional songs that everybody knows and loves. And so, I hadn't really had any kind of serious formal music education, or hadn't really, didn't grow up reading music or studying theory or anything like that. So to kind of walk into an environment where, I had the opportunity to kind of think about these things for the first time, or just be surrounded, by a lot of musicians that was their background since they had been 8 years old, but maybe they had never improvised before, so it's like everybody kind of had different strengths and weaknesses and things that we were all trying to work on, coming from different, places musically, and that was really exciting to and also pulled me out of my comfort zone.
That's always good
which is good,
Yeah.
hard but good.
Right, right.
I've known a few people who went to Berkeley, and I only know of one other touring musician, bluegrass musician who went there. Did you meet other bluegrass players or people who lean that way?
Yeah, well, one of them is here at the festival, actually, Jake Jolliffe with Yonder Mountain. Jake was a student there when I was a student there as well.
Cool.
And, it was a particularly awesome time to be there for bluegrass music. Even though I didn't really go there to be in the bluegrass program, there was still a lot of really great people that were playing bluegrass. Mike Barnett comes to mind, who plays fiddle with Ricky Skaggs now. Just a whole slew of really great players that were there at that time. So I was really fortunate to kind of, walk into an environment with some great young players like that.
So we've been asking folks about the collaborations that happen here at Delfest. And already you've kind of thrown some curveballs at yourself with your own band, but is there anybody you're hoping to play with or hoping to see this weekend?
Man, I always look forward as a fan. I mean, there's a huge list of people I look forward to seeing. I mean, I think Del McCoury Band is actually coming up next, and just as much as anybody, I never get tired of seeing Del, so I'm excited to pop over and hear him. I think I might be sitting in with Yonder Mountain later tonight. Just actually right before coming over here, played with the Kruger brothers, who I love. So, that's the thing about Delfest. You just never know who's going to be like, hey, come sit in with us. So
That's terrific.
And what are you up to the rest of the year? Now we're at the very beginning of sort of festival season, and I'm sure you have a lot on the books. Anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, festival season's always just one of my favorite times of year. Not only, to get to come and perform at events like this, the crowds are always wonderful, but, unlike when you're touring by yourself, doing theaters and clubs and things like that, that's fun, and there's always a kind of controlled listening environment, so the sound is usually pretty good. But festivals are they're so fun because you get to see all your friends, like what you're talking about, all the collaborations that happen. That's always really exciting. And so we got a lot of festivals coming up the rest of the year, or the rest of the festival season, should I say, summer, and then we'll be touring a lot in the fall as well. And so I've been working on some new music and hope to have a new record out later in the year. We'll see.
Nice. Just predicted my next question.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, is it how do you balance between the writing and the touring? I mean, do you try to get the writing in while you're touring, because you're on the road all the time?
Yeah, I wish I was better at writing, finishing songs on the road. Sometimes you're just going a million miles an hour and have so much to do in the midst of traveling. But what I do a lot of is, I'll come up with little ideas, and then I sort of document those ideas via voice memo or my notes on my phone. And so I have a lot of, ideas that happen when I'm out on the road, and then I kind of search for that quiet time when I get back home for,
short period
for
of time,
being able
probably.
to finish them.
Yeah, but you probably never have enough time to actually do it before you have to go back
always
again.
searching for it.
Yeah,
you got to carve out time to revisit all those notes.
Yeah, totally. I'm not somebody that, I mean, sometimes songs will come quickly, but I like to put, a fair amount of thought into it and not rush it and try to, dig into them.
You mentioned notes, so your words and music kind of as they come, and then put them together when you find the
I'm not, I know some people that are definitely like, oh, I always start with the music, and some people that are like, I always start with the lyric. I mean, it varies for me. I don't really do one or the other. It's sort of like, you know, sometimes a lyrical idea will hit, and I'll try to write something that's almost more like, you know, based on a rhythmic structure more than a melodic structure. So like almost like thinking of it like poetry, you know, writing something that feels good to say, but with, you know, a rhythmic element to it. And then sometimes I might just be noodling around on an instrument and go, oh, that's kind of cool, let me save that. And then, you know, sometimes the two ideas will marry up and it works.
Yeah. So we don't get to ask this question to many musicians because you started playing so young. Like, did you want to be a musician when you started playing when you were 8, or however old you were when you picked up?
Yeah, I was 8, and definitely from about the time I was 8, I was like, this is what I want to do with my life.
Amazing.
I fell in love with it deeply, really quickly, and you know, it felt like that's the cool thing, you know, about the camp is you see all these people that maybe this is very new for them to get to come to a bluegrass festival like this, and new to experience what it's like to have people sit around in a circle and, you know, play music together. But you know, as a kid, I was lucky to get that at such a young age. I mean, I just fell so in love with it, and you know, I'd get a new, back then it was CDs, you know, back in the CD days. My dad and I, my dad was a big music fan, and it seemed like every week we would get a new CD, and you know, it's just like so much music to discover, and I would stare at the album covers and think, that's what I want to do. I want to make albums and I want to tour, and you know, I wanted to do what my heroes were doing.
Yeah.
So
Did your dad like bring you along in terms of the discovery of it? Was it like every time you got a new CD, it was like, let's explore this? Because that's probably really great for, you know, young fertile minds who are discovering it.
yeah, I mean, you know, we were kind of discovering it together in some ways. Like, he had always loved a lot of music, and my mom has a real natural singing voice. You know, neither one of them have any interest in being on a stage. That's not what they do at all. They're not stage parents by no means, but they just, you know, really enjoyed music, and you know, like grew up singing in church and hearing music kind of that way. And I don't know, that part of the world, you know, and back in Tennessee, and there's a lot of towns like this, but you know, it seems like music is almost a way of life for people. You know, everybody sings in some way, so I never really thought it was anything that crazy. But then, like, you know, when we really started getting into bluegrass and going to these jam sessions, then I was like, oh, music. Now I want to do music. You know, so I'd always like had music in my life from as far back as I can remember, but it was really when I picked up the mandolin that I was like, oh, all this, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It just starts growing as the picture expands. Well, I don't want to eat up too much of your time. Is there anything else you want to ask her, RJ?
No, this has been great. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the festival.
Yeah, we will. Thanks.
Yeah,
Good luck
for
out
sure.
there.
Thanks.
Thank you.